Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am so thrilled to have Vanessa Morcom of Morcom Media on the show. We were just talking about Vanessa's located in Canada. I just got back from Canada last night. I miss it already. We have so much to share. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here.
Annika, it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. Now, we are both moms. You're millennial, I'm Gen X, so a little older vintage. We both have been in the world of publicity. You're also a journalist. How did you get into PR in the first place?
Like all good stories, by accident.
Yeah.
So I was studying journalism in Montreal at Concordia University.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend and her dad owned a footwear distribution company. And she said, "Hey V, can you do me a solid? Dad bought the rights to Paris Hilton's, footwear collection. Mm-hmm. Could you do her PR?" And I said, that's all lovely, but I absolutely loathe the entertainment and celebrity world. And I am training to become a journalist on the front line. I love war correspondence, serious, hard fact journalism. But, I am Canadian. I am kind. I love my friends and always ready to do a solid, And so I agreed, and we got a couple girlfriends together from school. I got put in touch with Paris's PR people. They had a press release already written, and they said, just make it known in town that Paris is coming. We did a little bit of signage in store that if anyone bought shoes in advance of her appearance, they could have an autograph signing.
Oh.
Smart, right? And this was about, I would say 16 years ago. And I was faxing press releases.
Yeah, I remember those days. Faxing, and then you have to call. Did you receive it? Landlines?
Absolutely. No stranger to the phone. Honestly, still to this day, that is my number one preference is being on a normal phone call. Video conference, I love it. I love seeing faces. But just being on the phone, that's where my power is, Anyhow, it was such a success. We ended up closing down St. Catherine Street. We had about 6 hours of wait time, of fans, bewildering fans. And it was my foray into PR. And I thought, what am I doing wanting to, be on the battlegrounds in journalism? I could really make a buck and have a lot of fun doing this PR business. So that's where it began. I was 23. And through that first event, in a small town like Montreal, news travels fast. No. And so any celebs that would come to town and needed a press wrangler, Pam Anderson, Drake, Leonardo DiCaprio, Madonna, I would get the call and I would handle the product launch or the movie unit PR or and I just learned as I went while I was studying in school.
Okay, that's not a very typical story for most people who go into PR. That is amazing. And the fact that you're able to move from wanting to be a war correspondent into this other totally, it's almost like it is still being on the front lines, just a different kind of war, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's truly amazing. And so you finished your degree and then you already had your business.
So I didn't finish my degree. Oh. I dropped out of university so that I could focus on my business. I ended up going back 10 years later to finish that degree, because that was something really important to, and in terms of a principle of life living, it was finish what you start lesson, So that came later on, but in the interim, I ended up dropping out of university, went full force into business. And I come from a line of, my father was a timeshare salesman. So I grew up, in the sales office, looking at him, signing checks, handing out popcorn, that was really a part of my upbringing. And I loved it. That was my connection piece with my dad. So it wasn't foreign to say, yeah, I'm going to just give this a try. And also the industry, it was lucrative. Like it was something, looking at like, do I hold some student debt or do I go out and make a killing? And, when you start building traction, like there's no stopping you. It just like snowballs.
Yeah. You have to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then you also worked for Canada's largest social enterprise. Right. So you have this world of celebrity. I want to hear about the social enterprise because I also noticed that a lot of the work that you do is with major brands, but with social good components. And I really love that. That's something that just makes my heart sing.
Mm-hmm. So after about half a decade running celebrity and entertainment PR and beauty and champagne brands, I had accumulated, some status and some wealth, but I was just an empty shell of a human being, and I just thought, this is not the career for me anymore. And I shut down operations. I sold my database and I worked in a French bakery, and I wanted to learn how to make croissants because I thought I'm missing some soulfulness to my life. And so I started all over again, ready to become a pastry chef. And then I got a really great phone call. There was a transgender supermodel. Her name was Jenna Talikova, and it was found out that she was born Walter. So she had a great legal person, Gloria Allred, on her team, and got the call to, pony up and change legislation. Like, what's the opportunity here for transgendered people in the pageant realm? So press junkets, Barbara Walters, 60 Minutes, reality show on the E! Network. And I was her publicist on camera and off camera, which was really fascinating because I could also build out what the components of the storyline could be and how we could really bank off of the publicity around this. If you're going to go to Elle magazine for a cover feature and say, well, we're bringing also a reality show with us, it's double gram for the publisher as well. So we did some great things. We had a campaign promoting veganism with PETA, and we dressed Jenna in an entirely made vegetable bikini by hand. We stringed the bikini by hand, cauliflower, carrots, broccoli. And it was such a great success. And they did change legislation so that transgenders can compete in Miss Universe pageants today.
Yeah, that's so amazing. What a time to be part of so much history, because I know that's still an issue, like so many social issues, that there's so much push and pull depending on what country you live in, right? Even in the United States, what state you live in to that degree. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about Canada is I feel like people are, as you said, kind. The reason you got into PR is because you were being nice to your friend, but also the consciousness there about humanity and how to treat people. And I've seen that in a lot of your other work too, whether it's with Lipton, working overseas. You've done a lot of different things. So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit, because obviously this foray kind of drew you back into, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be a pastry chef. Like I am supposed to be in this world of PR, just a little bit different.
Exactly. It was this, I want to say, awakening of like PR being able to promote women's voices. And I thought that for me, I can get behind that every day and not feel empty. I can get behind that and use these massive microphones that we have in our toolbox and elevate women's voices, because we know that women get in positions, decision making, things change,
Sure.
And they're so active in the grassroots of community building, and we just need to see more women lifted up. And we're going to do that by adding their voice to the conversation. So that was a turning point for me in my career. I got back into PR and I just said, I'm going to focus really on women and how can women win, and how can we use PR to elevate their voices? And then I was introduced to a wonderful CEO at Me to We, the social enterprise. Her name was Roxanne Joyal. And they had a beneficiary, which was We Charity. And so this social enterprise was the for-profit arm. Okay. And what it did, what the mandate was there was 1,500 artisans over in Kenya. And they made $10 Rafiki bracelets. And it was our job to bring that to market in North America. And the great news about that is the kickback went back into international programming back in their communities. So women were taught financial literacy. We touched all pillars of, water, education, food, health, building hospitals. But the greatest takeaway from that field work in Kenya and India and Ecuador, because that's where they were located, working with artisans and in coffee, consumables, in chocolate making, in, artisan wares like the Rafiki bracelets, like I mentioned. It was around financial literacy for women. And when those tools were distributed in how to be a part of a lending circle, these artisans went from making bracelets to buying dairy co-ops, and their communities were just, more girls were being enrolled to go to school. It was so powerful to witness and be like just a molecule, like a speck on the map in terms of the involvement I had in that incredible organization, But it gave me so much, like I felt whole. I felt like a career was not my, and they say it doesn't feel like a job. That's the best way to describe that experience. Yeah.
That's what we all want. I think when we're younger, we don't realize that, which is what I see in your trajectory of you had success, you had wealth, but you didn't feel like that was it. And that's so many entrepreneurs that I speak to have the same thing. They reach the pinnacle of their careers, but they're kind of like, wait, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Having all of this stuff, all this money. And I've been there as well. And it's so funny when that point turns and then you're like, oh, wait, now I know what it is. And now you have this joy and this light and you feel really good about your work. But it's also, you're a mom of 3. Your children see that light in you. And as they keep getting older, they'll also continue seeing that expression and realizing that it's really important to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah. Well, and what ended up happening was that the work with the social enterprise took a pause because I went on maternity leave and then bang, we were hit with a global pandemic and it wiped out the social enterprise.
Oh, gosh.
It wiped out the social enterprise. It wiped out the charity. It was just devastating. So, here, new mom in the middle of this pandemic and no career, like no clients, and just said, I'm going to wear the hat of motherhood and give this a go. And, I can't run my house like a CEO. I don't have the language to bring to my children because I just wasn't raised that way either. So I went and I studied to become a chaplain. Yeah. And because I had so many babies back to back, I was also like, what am I going to do with my evenings? And learning is, super key. But I thought too, like, how am I going to approach the topic of death and dying? And also, again, looking for maybe another career change because I'm going to be a mom now. Maybe it's time that I, slow down the pace and, take a more noble place in society, and sit bedside with those that are dying. And I took it through the New York Zen Center through a Buddhist track. And it was just life-changing. I did my clinical at a pediatric hospice, and it was like what I needed in my PR toolbox was how to listen to people and also how to ask open-ended questions. And so I didn't follow the path of becoming a chaplain. I came back to PR because, again, I was brought back into the realm of media again, but I had a new skill set to add again, right? And yeah, so that's where I am today. And it's this mentality of like, we got to evolve or die because PR doesn't look anything like it did when I left before my kids were born.
That was one of the questions I had for you because I was a person who did marketing and then said, I really want to go into PR. Yeah. Like you, kind of found my way, self-taught. But then I've always had this juxtaposition between the worlds and done other things as well. What do you see as the main differences in the world of PR today, besides the obvious that the technology, we don't have to fax? And then, you mentioned you still like to do the phone calls, but we don't have to fax. Now we can just click a button and it goes out to everybody.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, listen, there's like a really sort of like tactical and strategy answer to this, and then I'll give you the metaphor.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So like tactically, it is, running campaigns just off of earned coverage is not going to work anymore. Like you've got to come in as an integrated marketing person.
Yes.
Which is also why I'm working with Peso and, keeping up with Ginny.
Well, and I'll take a little commercial break for the audience. This is actually how Vanessa and I met, is we are both working with the Peso model, becoming certified guides and working with Ginny Dietrich. And it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah. It is like the skill up in this opportunity is to get comfortable with, like, I see it as a 360 or a 3D approach, to comms, because I'm a strong publicist. I got a great network of journalists and I love writing. But when it comes to like owned and social channels and how to help, like I am a baby. I'm a little seedling, I know nothing, which is also such a great place to be at this juncture in my career, to just be completely brand new, of like wide-eyed, curious, teachable, but on the tactical front, I know I need some serious guidance, which is why mentorship is just so key. So having Ginny Dietrich, like, God bless, what a saint and friend and, and whip smart businesswoman, because this is not a path, like, strategically that I want to learn just by haphazard chance Googling the process.
Exactly.
I really feel like I need some guardrails. And that for me is like the academic answer to it. But I think metaphorically, like, we're in a renaissance. We're in a renaissance because so much is changing. People are still recovering from this crazy whiplash of the last 4 or 5 years. Businesses are struggling to get back on top. I mean, those are the conversations I'm having with clients today, which are around budgets, which are around, really getting scrappy and doing things quickly. And I love that because I'm in the trenches. That's my place. I thrive in those types of environments. But I also, as an objective, when I was onboarding with Ginny, she says, what do you want out of this? And I said, just some peace in my business. Yeah. I really just want some peace in my business. So how are we going to like rebirth the process, the renaissance that this can be, So I'm actually just hearing this out loud for the first time talking with you.
Oh,
Anna.
nice. I love that. I love that. One thing that I'm hearing from you also, besides that you are a lifelong learner and just super interested and engaged in the world around you and learning all the time and wanting to iterate, and is that, like, I was also a stay-at-home mom for a while, but I kept doing little side things, right? Like, oh, let me try this little thing that still, I can sell books at my daughter's school. I can put together the blah, blah, blah. Or just finding ways to be involved in the community and finding ways to be involved with my daughter, because I wasn't too good at just sitting at home and being the CEO of my household, if you will. Go back to what you were saying. And so, eventually I realized, like, I have to feel a whole person myself, outside of the construct of being a spouse, outside of the construct of being a mom. And that's actually a better model for my kids to see, is that I feel really good about who I am, what I'm doing, and that just pours more into my relationships with them.
100%. I think that the learnings from motherhood, I could never have been prepared for the lessons that would be on my doorstep.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I think now with like the third baby, it's kind of like we're just so like not shocked by anything anymore. Like we just accept that this is going to be really hard, and you just let go, and you just kind of, I'm not going to accomplish anything by yelling at the kids anymore, right? Like I actually will accomplish more by talking quietly, because then they want to listen, but reading the books, I had to burn them. I had to burn all the books that I had on parenting, because I also didn't have any role models around me. My husband's in the military, so we were posted to Ottawa for his work. That's why we're here.
Okay.
And so my family is all out on the West Coast. He has an Australian mom, and he's got siblings, but everyone's on the Coast Guard. They're on ships. They're all away. So where were the role models and the guides in motherhood? I was looking for my story in books and I couldn't find it.
Well,
And so that had to be rewritten. And this goes back to this Renaissance concept, which is that we have to start to write a new story for PR. And what's that language? And, I've said this before, which is that what people are not saying is often what is most crucial.
Yes.
Like what's not being said is what we need to hear.
Right. Yeah.
We need to read between the lines and write our own story, write our own language around brand, around strategy. We could do copycat but I don't think that's the way. I think it's doing the hard work, starting from scratch and writing based off of experience, expertise, and then intuition, bringing women's intuition into this. And it might be unfavorable, but I have a 99% women client base, so they get it.
Yeah. Well, So what does life look like? And first of all, I'm going to flag, this is not just a question I speak to moms who are on the podcast about, because I'm finding that fathers are equally wanting to find a change in the way that they work and how they're involved with their families. So this idea of Renaissance, it is in the world of PR, but it's in the world of business as a whole, where people are realizing this ain't it. We have to find a new way of doing things, a new way of being present for our work and for our families at the same time. It doesn't mean there's not a balance. You don't have it all, but you have to figure out what are you okay with at this moment in time? And that's something I am constantly struggling with and finding. Because I'm teaching, I'm a mom, I'm doing this, I'm doing this other thing. So just being really clear with myself and trying to be more, I think it's helping me become more and more honest with myself and therefore with others about what my limitations are, but then also what I can offer. So I can go on. There's so many tangents here. So I didn't mean to take us down another one, but what does that look like today? You're a mom, you're busy, you have your business, you were studying peso to be guides for other people in this integration, which is the way that the world has to work if you look at the world of comms and marketing.
Yeah. So it is organized chaos, totally organized chaos. I'm writing proposals and emails while I'm breastfeeding. My hours are completely erratic and crazy. My solid hours of work are between 8 p.m. and midnight because that's when the house is quiet.
Right.
And I can focus. It's really difficult I'm not a multitasker. If I hear children downstairs, I can't focus, just can't. That's my priority. So it's really finding any sweet moment that I can steal. It's having to find moments to steal in the day to get back to that email or to build out that creative idea. But I'm also leaning a lot on my network of people. I'm not doing any solo jobs right now. I'm bringing in support in PR, in art direction, in consultation, project management, because I just solo, I'm bombing the project. But if I've got a sidekick or I've got a co-pilot, we're just killing it because they also know when to pick up, if I've only had 3 hours of sleep or we've got a sleep regression or someone's, stomach flu or any number of things that are going to come up, it's in having someone be on the project with me that's working. And then also the roles in our domestic life have changed, have shifted. So I've brought in some outside help to do the cleaning in the house. Cleaning for me was a really important thing for it was the one thing I could control in my out of control world, right?
Yeah.
It was my obsession with cleaning. I had to let that go. So someone comes in part-time to help out with the cleaning. My husband does the cooking now. I used to be the primary cook. My husband does the cooking now, and it's great. He's an amazing cook. But the roles have changed everywhere, just so that I can get a couple hours in to, be of usefulness to my clients and provide feedback and respond on time. And everyone knows too, like I don't schedule my emails. You'll get an email from me at midnight because that's just the way it's going to be for the next year. But
yeah. But at least people know that about you. You're being really authentic and transparent with what works best for you so that you're setting that expectation. You're not expecting people to reply at midnight or 1 a.m, but they should know that that's what you have to do right now. So that's great.
And it's the same thing bringing baby in for a breastfeed during a meeting, right? Because we can't ask, the board to change our schedule, but everyone's totally so open-minded and welcoming of the baby, of me breastfeeding during a meeting. It's beautiful. Honestly, really, like the quality of work relationships with the baby being a part of the conversation is really beautiful. It's also challenging sometimes because, there's only so many times that you can reschedule something or have the reason, being the baby. But 5 months postpartum, I would say like a good 85% are on board.
Oh, so when you're working primarily with women clients and businesses, is that all scale? So, because I know you've worked with Barbie, so are you mostly working with corporate clients? Are you working with entrepreneurs and small businesses?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Like I'm all over the shop.
Yeah.
What I really am loving is the strategy writing and the consulting and then building out the sort of internal team to execute. I just don't have the capacity to do that right now. So that's the ideal. Any of those projects will come front of the line. And then the request of late has been around thought leadership, right? And also thought leadership, and I position this as like performance PR, but it's just a fancy word for earned and paid. There's a little bit of both that needs to go into this. And in terms of the thought leadership, it is like, doing that open-ended questioning to find out what is really at the heart of the matter in your business, And so there's a lot of businesses that'll come to me, startups, eco-beauty companies, retail, and they'll say, I really want to do great in the world. I don't know if it's a third-party certification, like a B Corp, benefit corporation, or, do I need to make a charitable donation off of sales, And so we'll go look at the business model and, just off of experience, I'll be able to make some recommendations and bring in some really neat different players into the game, charities or ambassadors that have like another set of eyes on like oceans and what we need to do for cleanups that I, can't possibly be an expert on all of the issues on how to save our planet, So it's really like calling in those experts to advise on how to build a brand from the inside out, how to build it into DNA, and then work that into, I don't write key messages for my clients when they're going to speak at engagements or sit on panels. The practice really comes from conversation, right? So we'll get into conversation. We have an hour. Our media training is like an hour conversation, and it is open-ended questions from me for that hour.
I love that. Yeah.
And sometimes they're the same questions again and again on repeat. Yeah.
That's fantastic, because media training is a hard one. That's a whole other topic we could talk about for a long time. I was just revisiting something with a client where we had done media training as our first step because they had some high profile people who were used to, are in the music business as managers, used to dealing with lots of acts that we all know about, Drake included, who you mentioned earlier, but not used to being the forward front person, right? So, but the funny thing was we would set up these media trainings and that one person would not show up to them on time. They would always be doing something else. So we had to kind of pivot. But again, every time you're talking, I'm like, so many tangents I want to go on with you. And I want us just to have a conversation all day. I feel like people listening hopefully feel like they're just listening to two girlfriends talk a little bit about shop, a little bit about personal. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And you're just so warm and engaging. I can tell why your clients would feel safe with you, that you will be really intentional with the work that you're doing with them. You'll take great care in making sure that they have the right partners for their purpose, for their mission, vision, and values.
Yeah. And Annika, like a lot of startups will also be so bold. They'll come forward and they'll say, we can't afford your services. Would you still be willing to work with us? And the answer is yes, because I know that the time I'll put into a business will always run back to, revenue, essentially. And I'll know on a sliding scale when to increase that retainer.
Nice.
But also because I know that they will be able to do great things if I'm also on board being a voice on that team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not, I don't have like a customer persona of bringing in revenues of 10 million plus. I mean, that's great. But I think the opportunity is really like, do you believe in this person, in their business, and their mission? And you can cut through the cheese pretty quickly when you're in, onboarding, doing your intakes. You can tell what's authenticity and not,
Yeah.
And so those red flags, I mean, I think too, that's probably one of the key moments in the Renaissance, which is listening to that intuition, seeing a red flag and, politely bowing out if you catch on to that early on. So you're not wasting their time or yours.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I wanted to leave our listeners and people watching a little more to investigate about you, Vanessa, and also Morcom Media. So I just want to ask if you have any closing thoughts. And also, if you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, or some words that are really helping you get through this chaotic time.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I think in terms of resources, there's like a must read, which is Dr. Clarissa Estes' Women Who Run with Wolves.
Oh, yeah.
Just beautiful. Just a beautiful piece of literature and the storytelling in this. It just really speaks to the subconscious, So in terms of like business books, I'm not going to be strong in that. But when it comes to like mythologies of like wild women, like bring it on, And I think in terms of a closing mantra, it would just be to thy own self be true. I'm really actually an introvert and very shy. Like this is a lot for me to come on a podcast. It's my first podcast ever.
I would never have been able to tell.
Annika, I am shaking in my boots, girl. Oh, but I got to walk the talk, right? Like
this has to be your worst nightmare because also as a publicist, you're like, where's my list of questions? Where's the framework that we're going to be talking about? And I'm like, nope.
No, but it's absolutely you too. I feel a kinship and I feel a warmth and I feel like it can be, my truth by my own self with you. So thank you for holding that space, for both of us. And what I was also thinking, because we're not really like girls gone wild anymore, right? This is like PR 3.0. We're like girls gone mild. Like, and by going rogue, by looking at this like next chapter of what we can do in communications, like your voice, like I just said, I'm just so impressed by your interviewing style. Like I will be a bona fide like fan until the day of your last episode, just so that I can hear you interview others. It is a real skill and I will send people your way so they can listen on how to do it right. So
gosh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, all the warm and fuzzies. Vanessa, the best way to find you is morcommedia.com. Is there anywhere else that people should go
So morcom.media.
Media, thank you.
We're doing a whole new website, like glow up, as you said earlier. The headline to our homepage is Where Women Come to Win. So you're in for a treat. It's not live yet, but that's where you can find me on LinkedIn. My email's vanessa@morcom.media. If anyone wants to reach me, I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And wow, I feel really honored to be here with you, to be your first podcast. And thank you so much for the kudos. I really appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode about the world of everything, PR, transition, finding your way in the world, figuring out how to be a great parent and also a great person and person, right? On our own business.
Our next episode is on rites of passage.
Ooh, all right. Okay, done. And if you haven't given us a rating or review, please do so. And I'll look forward to hopefully welcoming you all back as listeners or watchers of the podcast in the next episode to drop in a couple days. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.